Blue Island. Right there.
I'm in Blue Island, which is a weird name for a place, especially given that this place isn't blue and it's not an island, but it's called Blue Island. Nonetheless, it's got a unique feel to it. It's a nice change of pace from all of the other South Chicago suburbs I've been making videos on recently, that's for sure. A town that has some nice character and some interesting places to check out. Blue Island is a Chicago suburb that's about 30 minutes southwest from downtown. It actually borders Chicago's Morgan Park and West Pullman neighborhoods. In case you haven't followed my channel much this past year, first of all, big mistake on your part because this is Emmy Award-winning content and it's been highlighted across all major networks. Don't mind the 90,000 subscriber count because that's actually 900,000.
You sit on a throne of lies.
YouTube has, failed to update their software. So if you're not a subscriber yet, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future Emmy Award-winning content. But anyway, in case you're one of the few who haven't seen some of my videos from this past year, I've made videos on Dixmoor, Robbins, Riverdale, Harvey, and other places. A lot of those suburbs have seen better days, and if you want to learn more about those places, you can always check out my Chicago Suburbs playlist that is linked down below. Blue Island, however, is different from a lot of its neighbors towards the south and east. Granted, Blue Island ain't perfect, but the downtown is lively and full of local businesses. The buildings have character and so do the homes. Blue Island isn't an extremely wealthy community, but it doesn't need to be one because really, the reason why things in downtown Blue Island are so lively today is because there's been a real effort from people throughout the community to prioritize the appeal of their downtown. What is it that you love about Blue Island?
Well, I've lived here all my life, and honestly, it's the people. The people in Blue Island are the best. I mean, we are just, everybody knows everybody, everybody's friendly, and, you know, it's always been like that. It's never been anything else, and that's why we're still here. There you go.
Blue Island. Right there, good food, a fantastic destination point. It's about community.
So we're on Old Western Avenue, and it is a destination for anybody on the south side that knows it. It's a special place. It's mildly isolated, except it was a lot of cool businesses, and if you know about it, you know you're in for a good time.
Well, I think what attracted me to move to Blue Island was the housing stock, beautiful, beautiful homes. I grew up just north of here in south side of Chicago, and the homes were their unique architecture. Blue Island's actually older than the city of Chicago by like 2 years, so it's an old community that was built kind of like from the railroad.
Here's an example of reinvesting in the community. Back in 2016, Blue Island announced plans to redevelop the town's main street, which is Western Avenue. Work has already been completed on the portion south of the canal, and soon, work will be completed on the longer stretch that's north of the canal. The reason why it took so long for the project to start on the northern portion is because it took a while for the city to raise the proper amount of funding. Businesses along the corridor paid a tax between 0.25% and 1% on profits made over several years. That, along with government inspections and discussions among city leaders, have made the project drag out for nearly a decade. The city, however, has invested into more infrastructure than just Western Avenue.
There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of rehabbing going on. a coffee shop like Studious and a restaurant like Bub wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. And now with Mayor Bellato, who's doing so much to improve the city, he's redoing all the streets, the sidewalks. I mean, everywhere you go, you see construction going on. It's awesome. I mean, nobody likes construction, but actually we do, because we know that it's improving the city. It's making our streets, our alleys. Oh my gosh. When they redid my alley, I was just like, oh, this is the most wonderful thing, because it's an older city. We have old houses that have garages that you get to and from your alley. It is nice because then you don't see garbage cans on garbage day all lined up in the front. And it's great. It keeps the garbage in the back where it should be.
Not only do you not see much garbage along the curbs in front of the homes, but you also don't see much of it along Blue Island's Main Street, which isn't always the case with some of Chicago's southern suburbs. Western Avenue is a well-kept street, but the city and its residents see an even brighter future for the thoroughfare. A big part of the redevelopment plan calls for newly planted trees to line the street, which will definitely make things look nicer. Western Avenue is the address for about 40% of the retail businesses in all of Blue Island, so the city realizes the importance of investing in its appeal and walkability. Joe talks about another major discussion point of the redevelopment plan for Western Avenue.
Back in the 70s, the Illinois Department of Transportation talked the business owners into making Western Avenue one way. I think that's a big negative, personally. As a business owner, I think Western Avenue is somewhat like a highway. Traffic's a little too fast. So I would love to see it go back to two-way. It slows down traffic. When you're driving slower, you happen to notice businesses. Kathy's Flora Shop or Three Sisters Antique Mall or the local bank or whatever. So I'd love to see that happen. Financially, I think it would be tough for the city to do because the state wants us to kick in a lot to redo the lights and all that stuff. But that's one thing that I think hurts, but even with that handicap, investments by business owners have kept the business district thriving.
Originally, that's what Western Avenue was, a two-way street, but in the 1970s, as Joe mentioned, both Western Avenue and Gregory Street were converted into one-way streets by the Illinois Department of Transportation to relieve traffic congestion. For a long time, that was a practice that was implemented in downtowns of smaller to medium-sized cities all throughout the country. But nowadays, the trend for cities across the U.S. is to get rid of their one-way streets by converting them back to two-way streets. The benefits include a lot of what Joe mentioned. It slows down traffic, it makes the streets more pedestrian-friendly, it looks more appealing, and the pedestrian-friendly environment encourages more customers to park their cars and go into the stores. On the flip side, reasons why business owners and residents would be against that would range from how much their taxes would get raised to pay for the project, along with just not liking the idea of change, because sometimes people just want things to stay the same. And a change like the main street through town going from a one-way back to a two-way would be an adjustment. However, changes are bound to happen no matter what. Sometimes changes are good, sometimes changes are bad. Most residents here believe that Blue Island is experiencing changes currently, but they're the kind of changes that are good.
Like any community, we've had our ups and downs. I truly believe we're on the uptick, and that has a lot to do with the Chamber of Commerce, business owners that have really invested in the community. There have been grant programs that help businesses revitalize their facades. So it's been a combination of a lot of things that have helped. Some work, some don't. Some are short-term, some are long-term. Presently, there's an owner of Beggars Pizza. I don't know if you've heard of that chain. It's a very successful chain. The owners have invested significantly. They're originally from Blue Island. They just bought the old theater that was empty for many, many years. And they revitalized that. It's been up and running for like 2 years, bringing in acts from all over the country. Very successful. They've got shows almost absolutely every weekend. So they've been significant in the recent uptick, as well as the existing mayor has really invested in the infrastructure and stuff like that.
Let's expand on the Lyric Theater, shall we? The 12,000 square foot theater first opened in 1917. It, along with the Grand Opera House, were the center points of Blue Island's entertainment center. In 1948, Janet Fisher first met her future husband, Angelo Goretto. The two lovebirds went on to get married and had 6 kids, in which all of them consider Blue Island to be their home. Angelo went on to help start Beggars Pizza alongside 2 of his sons, Peter and Larry. If you're not familiar, Beggars Pizza is a popular chain that today has 27 locations in the greater Chicago area, but the first one was at 127th and Western, right here in Blue Island. Well, unfortunately, the Lyric Theater suffered a major fire in 1960, which ended up closing the theater for a while. It was able to reopen shortly after, but in 1989, it closed again. Despite reopening and closing several times throughout the 90s under various names, the theater had mostly been closed between 1989 and its most recent reopening. Well, in 2019, Larry Goretto, who today owns and operates the original Beggars Pizza in Blue Island, purchased the theater with the help from his brother-in-law, Ray Cantello. His daughter, Amanda Melvin, had the idea and brought it to Larry, knowing that her family had strong roots with the theater. Shortly after purchasing, however, the pandemic hit, which of course caused challenges. They didn't stop renovating the theater, though. It just took a little bit longer than expected. In 2022, the theater was reopened after being closed for the previous decade. While the building was purchased by Larry, it was Amanda and her husband Pat who put the work in on renovating the theater, and like Joe said, the reopening of the Lyric Theater has had a huge positive impact on downtown Blue Island, or should I say, Uptown Blue Island, as it's referred to by locals. On that note, Sandy talks more about how Blue Island has changed over the years.
Klein's was a huge store that was pretty much like a Kohl's, originally a Kohl's, and there was one here, one in Chicago Heights, and that was the cornerstone of our retail section uptown. And then, slowly as people migrated out to the western suburbs and they built malls, and malls became the thing of the future, and Evergreen Plaza went up at 95th and Western, and a lot of the little stores started to die out. But then they were replaced by other little stores. I mean, it's always been very unique stores that have replaced the others. We had a Dad and Lag Tog shop back in the day. A tog shop. It's funny to say now because, who knows what a tog shop is. But anyway, we had 2 jewelers. Now we had 3 jewelers, actually. We have one now. We still have a grocery store, and we lost our Jewel. There was a Jewel, Osco at the corner of 127th and Western, and a Walgreens. And we lost those 2, but other stores have come in and replaced them, and we still, Iverson's Bakery is still going. We have a Hispanic bakery uptown too. We have, everybody has Dunkin' Donuts. We actually have 2.
We have quite a few locally owned coffee shops.
And we do. We have Studious, and we have Bub Cafe on Old Western across the river there. And so it's nice. We have we don't have chain restaurants. We have family-owned restaurants here, and that makes a difference. And no matter what, if it's Italian, if it's Spanish, if it's Mexican or American, like our Damastes. Damastes is a little diner that's been there since I was growing up, and we used to go there as kids, and they used to have the where you could play music through the jukebox at each table, like an original diner back in the day. That was wonderful. But they're still there. They're still going strong, and we're happy to have them all.
This is Waterfall Park at the corner of Irving and Fulton. A newer tradition for the city is an annual event called the Blessing of the Waters. It began in 2006 to draw more attention to the importance of having clean water. This elevated pool puts more oxygen into the Cal-Sag Channel. On the other side of the canal from Uptown is the Old Western Avenue Historic District. Joe goes ahead and talks about some of the things that makes this part of town special.
They have most recently a festival called Mayfest, and it's actually on the old part of Blue Island, I should say over the canal. It's called Old Western area. Before this bridge went in, there was another bridge over Western. And that section, when the new bridge went in, was kind of cut off, or bypassed. But it's still a thriving area with a brewery and other nightclubs and retail is starting to pop up. They have a very successful Mayfest that brings in over 100 vendors, and that's successful. The Park District runs festivals. We've had, Blue Island has German roots, and we've had festivals called Sanger Fest, which is a festival of song. Things come and things go. And that's the nice thing is people keep trying all different things.
In 1896, a fire destroyed much of Blue Island north of the canal, but the area today that's known as the Old Western Avenue District wasn't touched by the fire. Some of the buildings here reflect the pre-Civil War German settlement time period for the city. In 1983, Old Western was officially designated as a historic district. Western Avenue used to be a through street, but in the 1960s, the canal was expanded and the bridge was replaced by a newer one that's there today and goes above not only the canal, but also the railroad tracks. This aerial photo was actually taken while the canal was being expanded, and you can see what it looked like in September of 1967. Another aerial photo here from 1960 shows what it looked like when the bridge was still intact before expansion on the canal began. What sticks out to me here is that the train tracks back then went over Western Avenue. And since we're still here, how about one more? This aerial photo is from November 14th, 1938. Another big part of the city's identity would be the railroad switch. It's a popular spot for railroad fans to come by. People will literally come in crowds and fight for the best spot to set up their cameras to get photos and videos of trains passing through. Chris Campagna knows all about Blue Island's identity. He's been painting murals throughout Blue Island with the city's history and identity being the inspiration behind his work.
So you can go to places, but this is a small hometown area. It's a great community with people that really give back to the community.
Here's another mural of his on the north end of town. Each letter represents a landmark in Blue Island. I had him explain it all, but unfortunately I think that all of my Emmy Award-winning content hopes went out the window when this wireless mic stopped working when talking with Chris. I was very disappointed when I found out that the mic wasn't working properly when recording anyway. Here's yet another mural of his that's more towards the central part of town that pays tribute to the city's German heritage.
So this mural was created in the early 1900s. No one knows the year. It's like 1901, 1903. I tried to do my research on it, but
That'd be hard to find.
No, it is. It really is hard to find. So this is called a ghost mural. So the mural that was here is exactly what I created. Exactly what I created. And it was done twice. So this was redone in the 1960s.
Chris is someone who has a pretty unique life story, and he talks about some of it here.
I'm just a kid from Blue Island that went through hell and back.
When did you have your surgery?
Which one? I had
The one that you almost lost your life with?
when I was 5 years old.
When you were 5?
5 years old.
So this happened, okay.
You can
There you
see
go.
it. You can see it. So I'm in the hospital for 4 years of my life. 4 years. And I taught myself how to paint. I read books. I learned Spanish, French. I learned how to do great things. And then I taught myself how to paint. And there was a doctor who came up to me and goes, "You're 5 years old. Now, if this happened today, I'd be national news. I would. I was 5 years old, and I sold my first painting for $400, and then boom, another, and then boom, another, and then boom, another, and then another doctor, and then a nurse is like, 'We want this. This is great.'"
Now you painted this. How long would you say that this would stay before it needs to be, repainted?
Hi, so I'm Chris Campagna, Campagna Studios. I've been doing this since I was 25 years old. My art is in the Museum of Science and Industry, the Field Museum, the Shed Aquarium. In Seattle, I have a sculpture on the Pike Place Market. It's in downtown.
Okay,
New
but
York.
how about this painting right here? So you're painting this week, right?
Yes.
So how long would it take for this to fade away to where you would have to repaint it? Because it's eventually going to fade.
Let me just be honest with you. I'm using the right paints. I've been doing these again
Right.
since 1995. I use the best stuff. This will last longer than you and I and my kids. This will last over 100 years. I coat it 5 times. I make sure that everything is done correctly. Now I can come here and spray paint this, and in 3 years, it'll be gone. No, not this mural. Not at all. This mural will take the test of time.
For more on that, you can follow up on Brian Edwards' YouTube page that is linked down below, as he plans on releasing a full documentary on Chris's artwork and life story. Fascinating stuff. What's also fascinating is the homes along Greenwood Avenue. This street parallels Western Avenue, 1 block to the west, and has homes along it that this community is really proud of. Rightfully so. There's even an event called the Blue Island House Walk that's been going on since 1979. It's put on by the Blue Island Historical Society, who claims that the Blue Island House Walk is their biggest event every year. Pretty much all of the original homes off of Greenwood Avenue were built anywhere from 1900 to 1930, give or take. By the way, if you want to see more of what Blue Island looks like when this video is all said and done, make sure to check out another channel of mine called Chris Harden's Travel Archives, where I'll upload all of the footage that I filmed but didn't use in this video. Don't mind the 4,000 subscriber count, it's more like 40,000 subscribers because YouTube hasn't, updated their software in a while, so they're a little bit slow on getting up to speed. But anyway, make sure to subscribe to that channel, the link is down below, and hit the notification bell so that you're notified when my second video on Blue Island gets uploaded. In the meantime, I think I've been a little bit too positive in this video. I'm trying to build a brand here that revolves around negativity. I'm kidding, but no, seriously. I asked Joe what some of the challenges were that Blue Island currently faces or has faced in the past, and this is what he had to say.
Well, I think for a business owner, one of the biggest struggles is property taxes.
Property taxes.
Property taxes, in my opinion, are unfairly assessed in Illinois. And I should say Cook County, Illinois, primarily. And that's because the greatest percentage is assessed on businesses. Homeowners are at a different lower rate, and then there's mixed use, and then retail.
And homeowners think it's high for their home.
Correct.
So it's even higher for these small businesses.
Oh, yeah. In the neighborhood of, let's say, a homeowner's at 16% of their assessed value. A business will be anywhere from 26 to 33%. Yeah. Okay, and that's tough for businesses to pay their mortgage, pay their electric, pay their gas, pay their employees, and yet still have that property tax burden. And I think that's really one of the factors that may contribute to urban decay. If you look at the rates, it's just, and here's the rationale. A business has no vote. Okay, they're not an individual. They're a corporation. Yeah. So a business cannot vote out a politician that votes to increase the taxes on businesses.
Well, what do you know? Property taxes in Illinois strikes again. It's a real problem, people. It's not the only problem in Illinois, but it's one of, if not the biggest problems that every municipality in the state faces today. Some of you say I'm biased. Some of you say that I'm unfair and hate Illinois. No, I don't hate Illinois. I just hate how the people who have ran the state, and Cook County as well, over the years, have not only ran their home into the ground, but have also dug a 20,000-foot hole that seems to only keep being dug deeper, and it's very unfortunate. Well, people, it is now that time. What did we learn in this video? We learned again that you can't always trust the Cook County assessor, just like how you can't always trust a married cross-dresser, but you can always trust Chris's livability score.
Education.
Dwight D. Eisenhower High School serves the community. Test scores aren't all that great though. Reportedly, only 9% of students are proficient in math and reading, while 43% are proficient in science. It's not the worst academic school, but it could be better. It gets an 8 out of 20.
Crime.
The latest data shows that Blue Island has a violent crime rate of 584 for every 100,000, while the property crime rate is 2,900 for every 100,000 residents. While both of those numbers are above the average rates for both national and state, I spent a lot of time in this town, and I never felt like a crime was about to happen anywhere that I went, and everyone that I talked to felt like this was a pretty safe community as well. Just don't drive a new Mercedes in the sketch areas of town, and stay away from all the freakazoids, and you should be alright. Crime gets a 12 out of 20.
Downtown.
Downtown has character, mostly occupied storefronts, and the community continues to invest in the appeal through Chris Campagna's murals and streetscaping along Western Avenue. Also, it's not just the city that's involved. It's clear that there's a strong community that cares about keeping Blue Island a nice place, and that gives me confidence for the future that things will continue to be on the upswing here. Downtown gets 17 out of 20.
Economy.
Outside of the small business-rich Western Avenue, the economy isn't great, let's be honest. The median household income is just around $60,000 per year, and these days, that's not very much. The roots of Blue Island derive from being a blue-collar community that relied on manufacturing jobs, and many of those are no longer here. There's some industry south of the canal, and there's some industry to the west, to the east, to the southeast, but most people who live here have a pretty long commute. It's around a half hour or so on average, according to data. It helps that I-57 and the Tri-State Tollway are close by, along with the Metro line. Economy gets 11 out of 20.
Recreation.
Blue Island is in an urban environment, so recreational opportunities are going to be far and few in between. The city has some nice parks though, so that helps. Blue Island Memorial Park has a nice historic stadium kind of feel to it, and I always love seeing stuff like this, which is pretty rare. There's a few forest preserves nearby with some hiking trails. There's also the Joe Louis Golf Course just east of town, and another golf course in the northwest part of town. Also at Memorial Park is a community swimming pool, and you know what, Chris, you've got it from here.
You know, it's about community. We have a pool, we have a skate park, we have a baseball field. We have all the cool amenities that you would want in a hometown area. And this is hometown. When I walk around the streets of Blue Island, you know what I see? Friends like, hey, Campagna. They call me my last name. Hey, Campagna, how you doing? Hey, how are your kids? Hey. And that's just how it is. It's hometown Americana. It's a place that you really want to live in.
Chris might think that my score is too low, but I'm going to give Recreation a 7 out of 20. Remember, I see a 20 out of 20 as being Santa Barbara, California, or a 15 out of 20 as being Grand Haven, Michigan or something. You know, Blue Island is an urban environment, but I do like the network of city parks that Blue Island has. It's impressive, and I mean that.
History.
I don't know. I'm not sure on this one. I don't think Blue Island has much history to speak of. You definitely don't see it driving through the old Western District or the Uptown area. You definitely don't see it off of Greenwood Avenue. Yeah, those homes look all cookie cutter to me. No character in those homes. Look, it's impressive. Today, Cook County has a lot of municipalities, but Blue Island is one of the oldest. There's a 200-page book on Blue Island's history that was published in 1962 if you want to read that. History gets a 16 out of 20.
Amenities.
While there's not a ton of shopping nearby, you do have quite a selection of unique restaurants and shops along Western Avenue throughout its 2-mile stretch in Blue Island, so that's always a plus. If you're wanting your big box chain stores, there's several of them a few miles west at Rivercrest. Or you could head north just beyond the Blue Island city limits, as there's Marshfield Plaza. Elsewhere, you have a couple of rundown strip malls with your Planet Fitnesses and Dollar General-like stores. Could be better, could be worse. Amenities gets 11 out of 20.
Cost of living.
Homes are not expensive in Blue Island, but because it's in Cook County, Illinois, the taxes are unfortunately pretty high. That's the biggest thing holding Blue Island back in my opinion, and it's not fair really because it's things that they can't control. For example, here's a pretty decent looking smaller house in a good part of town that's listed for $250,000. Not bad for today's housing market, but you continue to scroll down and the estimated property taxes are at $5,000 a year. At least it's not as bad of a hike as places like Chicago Heights or Dalton, and at least here in Blue Island, you know that investments are being put back into the community instead of lining the pockets of these politicians so that they can go to Vegas. Cost of living gets a 19 out of 20. All in all, the Chris Livability score for Blue Island, Illinois is 101 out of 160, which ranks it as the best score for a place in Illinois out of all of the places that I've done this for so far. Before we wrap things up, one final message here from Joe.
Well, this is a funny side piece, and obviously you can see I shave twice a day. Okay, and so about 5 years ago, I was on vacation with I have 3 girls. That's where 3 sisters comes from. And they noticed after a week I've got a beard. So they, this was October, they said, wow, you grow a beard fast. Why don't you not shave till Christmas? And I said, why? And they're like, oh, no reason, just see how long it gets. So I did. In November, I get a box in the mail. I open it up. It's a Santa suit. Okay, and I'm like, who's this for? And they said, well, we thought you could play Santa at 3 Sisters. And I'm like, the last person in the world. I did, and fell in love with it. Just this year, I was at the White House as the National Santa for the tree lighting.
That's pretty awesome.
And the funny thing is, my Mrs. Claus is also from Blue Island, and she went with me. We've also been invited back this year. So that's just a funny little story about me.
Look, I like Blue Island. It's not a snobby, rich suburb like Naperville. It has character, and based off of my experience, it's full of great people that care about their community. That's all you can really ask for, right? It really felt like a small town to me rather than a suburb smack dab in the middle of an industrial area of the 3rd largest metro area in the country, surrounded by 8-lane tollways and freeways. Really, if you're looking to live in the Chicago area and you don't want to be too far from the loop, but you still want a small town feel and you value mass transit and you want to be conveniently located to other important places throughout the metro area, you should consider Blue Island. In the meantime, you can see a playlist of all of the other Chicago suburbs that I've made videos on right here. Peace.